Hi there, it's Mrs. Higgins. Today I'm going to show you what I want the kiddos to understand when it comes to estimation. Back when I was in school, I learned like a cutesy little rhyme that went something like, I don't know, 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, let it rest. And I've noticed when the kids try to use that strategy, they're very stuck. They're not sure which place value they're talking about, and I just think if they can see it with their eyes, they'll be more successful. So I'm going to show you what I teach them when they're rounding. So if we're rounding the number, I'll do a simple one to show you. 63 to the nearest 10. So I have them write down 63 in for nearest and 10. What I ask them to do is skip count by tens because we are rounding to the nearest 10. They need to skip count by tens. So what they'll do is they need to list all their tens. So we'll just start. And when they get close to 63, they're supposed to like raise their hand and tell me to stop. So we'll go 10, 20, 30, and I have them write it down so they can see it. 40, 50, 60, and usually a few hands go up by now. And then 70. And then everyone's hands go up because they know I've passed it. So these become what are called our two boundaries. 60 and 70 are our boundaries. So somewhere in the middle of 60 and 70, I'm going to find 63. So we draw our number line. On the test, sometimes the multiple choice questions are the number lines you should choose. I have them draw their own because sometimes when they have to look at 4 different number lines, they're confused. So if they just draw their own, they have to pick the one that matches theirs. Plus, it helps me to get them to practice drawing them. So our boundaries are 60 to 70. And I always tell them to create your halfway helper. And if from boundary to boundary is plus 10, then what is boundary to halfway? And they've gotten really used to that strategy. And at this point, they'll kind of all shout 5 because half of 10 is 5. So plus 5. So 60 plus 5 is my halfway helper. So 65. Okay. So then what I ask them to do is they need to put 63 somewhere on your number line. So is it less than 65 or greater than 65? I try to use less than and greater than because that's comparing. I try not to say smaller or bigger. I try to use less than and greater than. Just a heads up. So 63, they'll probably put it right about here. And they need to label 63. Then I have them draw 2 lines, and it's your distances to your boundaries. So from 63 to this boundary, and then 63 to that boundary. Now they can visually see what it's closer to. One of the key things, though, before they see what it's closer to, is that their number line looks good. If they don't have a halfway helper, they could in their head think 63 is over here just because it's greater than 60. So it's very important that they put their halfway helper there. So then I want them to circle 60 because that's what it rounds to. So 63 to the nearest 10 is 60. So I'll do a bigger one. I don't know, 572. So we'll still do this one to the nearest 10. It does take them a while if they're skip counting there. But I can, at this point, convince them to at least go to 500 without writing everything out because we're rounded the nearest 10. So I want them to skip count by tens, but it would take a very long time. So they're pretty good now about at least starting at 500. So 500, 510, 520, sorry that's crooked, 530, 540, 550, 560, 570, and usually a few hands go up by now, and then 580. Now usually everyone's hands up because I've passed 572. So now they know these are their 2 boundaries. So they'll draw their own number line. Again, I want them to draw it. That way they're used to drawing their own and depending on themselves, and it's really good practice because one of the things kids struggle with in the entire school, even at the school I was at before, was number lines. So my 2 boundaries were 570 and 580. And then so from boundary to boundary is plus 10. And then so halfway must be plus 5. So 570 plus 5 is 575. Okay. So 572 goes about right here. So you draw your distances. And it's clearly closer to 570. We actually learned this the first couple weeks of school. I'm bringing it up today though, because today they are adding or subtracting using estimation. So they, like if the problem is 149 plus 503 to the nearest 100. This is what we're doing like today and tomorrow. So I want this to the nearest 100, so they have to do their number line for this number and for this number. So 149 to the nearest 100, 100, 200, I've passed it. So 100, 200, my halfway is 150. I've shown them the halfway by, and these are the blocks I bought. This is my hundreds block, so halfway to 100 is 50. And I did cut it in half to show them visually that half of 100 is 50. When I asked some of them half of 100, I was getting 60, 10, 70, just like random numbers. So then I literally had a kiddo draw a line. See, it's a little off, it's not halfway. So then I used yarn and they put it across and then I cut it where they said and it became 50. So if some of them are stuck, which they're halfway, just maybe tell them, remember Miss Higgins cut the blocks. That may help them. So 100 to 150 to 200, okay. 149, you know it's about right here because it's less than 150. So 149 rounds to 100. Then we'll do 500. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, okay. 500, 600, those are my boundaries. 550, 503 is about right here. So 500. Now I need to add 100 plus 500. So my answer is 600. Okay. It's getting tricky just because this is what's slowing them down, not this. They can do this. I can say this out loud to the class and they'll get this right. It's this that's really slowing them down. So if you just want to work with them on number lines or have these conversations, what are boundaries? What's your halfway helper? What does that mean? That would really help with my class. And yeah, that's it. That's all we're working on this week and tomorrow. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email or message me on Dojo.